Hi guys, and welcome to the second Spill the Tea with Scratching Collective. Um, just going to give a brief explanation of what Scratching is. So, Scratching is a collective created by Grace and Harris, um, just to allow really emerging artists to develop and showcase their work during the time that we're in, because we all know it's quite a difficult time at the moment. Um, and what we're going to do right now is spill the tea. So we're going to discuss topics about the industry, and we've got some lovely guests with us today, three guests, and I'm going to introduce them all to you. So we've got Will to start off with, William Shackerton. Will is a graduate from East 15 Acting School. He's an actor, and his credits work alongside tours, short films, and he's most recently just been in rehearsals for a tour of Romeo and Juliet and The Merry Wives of Windsor. Next, we've got Amina Hamid. So she is a creative producer and a company director. Her work focuses on underrepresented voices, and she's produced at The Vault, the Old Red Lion, and the Battersea Arts Centre. She's recently set up a page to showcase 2020 graduates, which is fantastic, I must admit. And then we have Krish. So Krish is a freelance actor and co-founder of Patch and Punit, who are based in Singapore. And he also works alongside the theatrical events company Strawberries. Well, welcome guys. Welcome to our second Spill the Tea. I'm going to start off with let's start off with actually Krish. I'm going to come with you, Krish. So starting your own company, what would you kind of say are the key foundations of starting your own company? Like, what are kind of the building blocks?
Honestly, I think the most important thing is starting itself. Because I feel like people, they have this fear of starting their own company or creating their own work because it won't be embraced, or they can't get, especially in a place like Singapore where you worry you can't get funding, you worry you can't get venue. But I would say just actually have the confidence to just do it, and also have a really strong why. Like, why am I making this work, and why am I choosing to even start a theatre company? Is there something that I really want to say, or is there something about the current industry that you want to change? So I think for us, it was, hey, why it feels like theatre is becoming this very almost intellectualized space a bit in Singapore. And we kind of wanted to rebel against that. We want theatre to be a lifestyle. So our first show was in like a little bookshop. So we didn't pay much venue costs. It was, all the props were with cardboard. So it was really like bring your own beers and kind of just chill out in this bookshop and watch a show. So I think one thing that helped us was we had a clear why. Like, we want theatre to just be fun and silly and stupid. And I would say that that's pretty much it. I think anyone can kind of create their own theatre company if they knew why they wanted to do it.
Fab. Whereabouts is your company at the moment? How long have you been established for as a company?
Our first show was in 2017, and then we kind of totally rebranded. And then we did that we've been running for about 2 years now.
Fab. Okay, fab. Will, kind of coming out of professional training, how do you think that has applied itself to the work that you've done in terms of the industry and going full force into work, basically?
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting thing because I think I can only speak for myself, but with my experience, the actual acting and performance training that I received while I was at East 15 was absolutely invaluable, and I've taken that into everything I've done since. That being said, on a sort of business side of things, I wouldn't say I've taken it into the industry at all, in that that's something that I would say most drama schools are still not really managing to prepare their third year graduates for, because it's an incredible, and I think that can be the same whether you sort of did a 3-year course or not, it's I think it's something that's applicable to anyone who is starting out in the industry. You kind of go into it and you're like, hang on, I don't know what I'm doing, you know.
Is in
And I
terms of,
think it
sorry, carry on.
go on. No, go on.
Just going to say in terms of business, so people aren't understanding what you mean by business. Do you mean as in like kind of the back kind of stuff to do with acting? If that makes any sense, kind of
So
like.
yeah, I think it's everything away from what you do as an actor in terms of being in a space performing. It's things like how do I get myself seen by agents and casting directors and producers? How do I even find auditions? How do I go about looking for an agent? And all of those really weird and scary words which I didn't even know what they were or what they meant, you know. And I, to be honest with you, it was as much of a learning curve as it was after leaving drama school as it was while I was at drama school, because, you know, rightly so, you spend your time focusing on the actual work of how can I be a good actor and, you know, make this play the best thing that it can be. But in terms of leaving and thinking, right, okay, how can I make myself as employable as possible? That's like a totally different question that I don't think people are prepared for. So yeah, in terms of has training helped me? For me personally, I really, really needed it from a performance point of view, and I don't think that's the case for everybody. For me, it was super useful. But yeah, from a point of view of thinking, okay, how do I make a headway into this industry? It's been much more to do with finding mentors, and sort of compatriots who will help you as you go along, and it's about kind of learning things from each other, and basically like, yeah, trusting the advice of people in the industry around you, because that's the most helpful thing you'll get, rather than someone who teaches at a drama school who hasn't been in the industry for like 30 years.
Right. So that being said, not going to drama school isn't the end of the world, is what I'm trying to get at as well.
Oh, absolutely not.
Is
Not
that
at all.
there is other ways other than the drama school.
100%. You know, I mean, put it this way: when I left drama school, I so for my showcase in third year, I didn't have any interest at all from agents. You know, and there were some people in my year who received a hell of a lot of interest from lots of really sort of large agents like Curtis Brown or Hamilton Hodel, you know, all of these names that people may or may not know, but they're what a lot of people would think of as the creme de la creme. And you know, I ended up leaving drama school with a fairly small agency, who didn't really suit me, and I don't think I really suited them. So really, I've kind of worked myself up post drama school in a very similar way to how someone might be doing it had they not gone anyway. The only benefit that I had was that I'd met people in training who I could create work with. But you know, there are many, many ways of doing that without training, as I'm sure you'll know. You know, whether it's that you were part of various theatre communities, or whether it's that you do move down to London and you start, you know, going to events and networking and stuff like that. There are ways of still building those connections anyway. So really, yeah, it's you can go to drama school and receive a really good training and then find you're having to work from the ground up anyway. So yeah, it's kind of much more, as far as the actual training goes, I think it's much more about, one, whether you actually need it or not, and two, like, you know, you might be able to get all the experience that you need elsewhere, like on the job, basically.
Yeah, thanks, Bill. That's really helpful, actually. I think a lot of people will appreciate that, because I think it's a struggle for some people because it's so limited at drama school and getting in. It's
Yeah.
if you don't go to drama school, you can feel a bit bit on the backwards of things. But that's really helpful. Amina, so as a creative producer and a company director as well, with with the industry at the moment, what are you kind of seeing from emerging artists? What are you kind of seeing that's coming into the industry that's new and fresh?
Things like this. I think it's great to see people moving online. I think if anything, we've learned that theatre and creativity, it's never stifled, it just finds a different way. It's like that there's a thing about water, isn't there, that it always finds a way to get back to the sea. That is absolutely not the saying. But I think creativity is kind of like that, and it's been really good to see things like scratching popping up, things like the shows must go online, which is like a load of graduating actors. Is it Bard from a Barn as well? So it's been great to see these different forms, and I don't think they take the place of theatre, but they certainly give a different opportunity. I also think it now is weirdly a really great time to be an emerging artist, because it's the time that you can create work and really easily share it to loads of people, and everyone's doing it the same way and has the same kind of lower budget on it. So I think it's been great to see emerging artists taking that and running with it, because I've met so many people in this time that I wouldn't have met, but that I've never actually met in person, which I think is great. But obviously it's a kind of a mix of that. It's also a time to take stock of where the industry is, which, you know, I think emerging artists are really, really well placed to do that, especially those with kind of a couple of months experience of going, actually, this is quite hard, and currently there's not a clear route in for this thing. Now's the time to be saying that.
Fab. I'm going to stick with you as well, Amina, and I've got a question from social media. So when work, I don't know how it works, but hopefully you can tell us the kind of process of when work's submitted to you. How do you go about kind of following up that and continuing in life further in that?
So it depends on the stage the work is at. So some stuff I'll get, which I got something recently that is half a page about a musical. And I had a call with the writer, and she sort of went, so this is what I think the audience are going to come into. And I was like, there's nothing on the stage at present, but that's, so it is about, at base, it's about an idea. And I think one thing that I will say is that I get a lot of scripts that I read and I go, this is great, but it's not right for the program of my company. And then I send it to about 10 other producers to see if I know someone who it is right for. But if I read a script or I read a treatment and I go, do you know what, this is something that I want to work on, the first thing I'll do is try and organize a coffee or a chat, because I think it's really the first thing you should do is talk to an artist about their work, and most people do that. And once you've done that, you can see if also you work together, because the producer-artist relationship is very specific. And it is, a lot of people say it's like a marriage. I don't like that. I don't think it is like a marriage, but it is a working relationship, and you do need to see that it works for you. I've been in many that do not work, and you get shouted at, and it's just not productive for anyone. But once you know that you like the idea of the show and you like the person that you're working with, it kind of goes pretty fast from there. You can move pretty easily as a unit from there. But I think it's all about establishing in the beginning what your role is and what their role is. I think a lot of young artists, and this is something that actually probably kind of ties into what Will was saying about admin, or not admin, the business side, what I call admin.
No, it is admin. That's the worst thing. It's basically just replying to emails and filing.
But the thing about that is that a lot of young artists start kind of self-producing. And then they meet me and they go, I made so many mistakes, and I go, so did I just did them on other people's money. But everybody starts self-producing. So when you're taking on something from a writer or from someone who's gotten to that point where they've done like a show or 2 shows and now don't want to do that admin side and want to pass it off to a producer, it's very difficult to kind of pry things away from them because they're so used to having control of all of it. So I think, yeah, I mean, my big thing is don't be afraid to approach a producer. The worst thing they're going to say is no, and usually they're nice. And if they're not nice, you then have dirt on them, and you can use that. So there you go. That's. Hopefully, I answered the question. I feel like I just rambled.
Yeah, you answered the question perfectly. This is kind of for all three of you. We've had a few questions in about Edinburgh Fringe and taking your word to Edinburgh Fringe. Now, Krish, don't know if you obviously know about Edinburgh Fringe. Is there equivalence of that in Singapore?
We have a M1 Fringe Festival. So M1's so they own it's called M1 Fringe Festival. Yeah. Okay.
And people have kind of been asking how to get your work at the Fringe festivals and what are the kind of stepping stones of Fringe and where things can go from Fringe. I don't know if any of you have an experience of kind of Fringe.
So we actually did a show for M1 Fringe last year. But that's the thing. I think I don't know how.
Sorry, Chris, go on.
Have we got you, Will? You back? What did you say, Will?
Sorry, Krish. No, I started on something, but Krish had also started. It's the classic Zoom clash.
We'll go through both of you.
Okay.
Yeah, go first,
cool.
Krish.
Yeah, so I don't know how different our Fringe is from like the Edinburgh Fringe in terms of the application process. But for us, every year there's a theme, and you kind of submit a script around that theme, and you either get accepted into the main Fringe or the Fresh Fringe. So Fresh Fringe is more for emerging theatre companies that don't necessarily have had a lot of experience, and that's what we got into. So it's lower budget, lower tech time. We literally had like a couple of hours to tech, so it's meant to be kind of low budget. So for us to get into that, it was really just writing something, making sure that it went along with the theme, and kind of just submitting it and crossing our fingers, hoping that we would get the chance to showcase our work. Yeah.
Nice.
Anything from you, Will?
I mean, yeah. So I've performed at the Edinburgh Fringe a couple of times, and obviously my experience of it is more as a performer rather than on the producing side. So I'm not gonna pretend that I know the immense intricacies of that, because it's a minefield. But in terms of getting your work put on there, I think, without wanting to stray too much into Amina's territory, it is about sort of maybe understanding what point you're at with regard to venues. In that it's very easy to think, okay. I mean, to clarify for those people who maybe don't know, you've kind of got some larger, more established venues in Edinburgh, and then you've got some smaller ones. So the kind of two really big ones are Underbelly and Pleasance, and then you have some other pretty large ones like Assembly and Gilded Balloon, and then below that you have some really great sort of more grassroots venues, which are things like Greenside and zoo venues. And there are probably a couple of others that I've forgotten as well. And basically, the first time I went to the Fringe, it was in the summer of my second year at drama school, and we went with like a sketch comedy show to Greenside, and it was like such a good experience to be doing a show in a venue that like was small enough for us at that time. Because it kind of gave us chance to like make mistakes that, I mean, felt sort of earth-shattering at the time, but really weren't, you know, and it sort of was a safer space to like take risks. And So yeah, I'd say like basically for people thinking about going to Edinburgh, like make sure that you are prepared as you possibly can be. It's incredibly expensive. It's not necessarily the best thing to do straight away, because it can be a huge financial risk, and it can be a real strain on your mental health, and your kind of, and you know, it requires a hell of a lot of work. So I'd just say make sure that you have a plan. Make sure that you have various channels of funding, which I'm sure Amina will be able to talk a bit more about. But yeah, kind of make sure that you're not going in there in a position where you're going to drain yourself of all your resources, because Edinburgh can be the best experience, or it can really not be. So yeah, like really think about putting yourself in a secure position before you decide to commit to it, is what I would say.
Fantastic. Amina, I can see you nodding your head there.
Yeah.
What are your experiences and kind of opinions on Fringe and where to go from there?
So I've not taken a show there, in part because, as Will says, it's very expensive. I think it's a really great opportunity, but it sells itself on being a great opportunity for emerging artists to get their work in front of people. In terms, so like I'll start with venues, because that feels like a good place to start. When you're looking at venues, when you're looking at Underbelly, Pleasance, Assembly, they all offer different packages, and they all offer different, it'll be like on different splits, on different deals and agreements. Look, really like shop around. It is weirdly a bit like applying to drama school. You you need to look and pay attention to those, because you might say, oh, these people are going to give us a slot, and if we sign with them now and we have this agreement with them now, we'll have that slot, and they believe in us and all of this stuff. And that can be true, but it also can be a case of they'll get the money either way, and it is a lot of money. You're making a big commitment, and venues mean different things. I know producers who will only go to certain venues because they know that there's always a tried and true great program there. So I would say if you're starting looking, really shop around, really pay attention to what venues are where. And if you haven't been to Fringe before, ask someone who has, or find someone who has, or tweet, because Twitter is the perfect place to find out about anything theatre related, because it is really important to find the right venue. Like Will said, Greenside was the perfect venue for them then. And so it really depends, and there's within that there's so many different venues. Also knowing where it is in the city. Not obviously you're not going to know Edinburgh, but there are some venues, like there's I think over 400 venues. Some of them are far out, some of them are tiny cafes, so you really need to know what you're getting into, and I think that can kind of mitigate that level of expense to an extent. I will say you will probably lose money if you're going to Edinburgh Fringe. Everybody loses money when they go
almost
to
without a doubt. Yeah.
No matter how established you are, no matter how big the company, everybody, like I've not met anyone who's gone, do you know what, we broke even at Fringe, unless they're doing something illegal and not paying anyone. So it is, when we say expensive, it's really expensive. It's also not the only option in England. There are loads of different Fringe festivals. I took a show to Buxton Fringe, which did really well there, and because it's a smaller Fringe festival, had the opportunity to do really well in like a smaller program. I also, as you say, produced Volts this year, and I love Volts. I think it's a great festival.
Volt Festival's great.
In terms of funding, this was the other thing, which what a great question to throw at me with. Essentially, this
you know
might
everything, Amina.
Clearly, I'm very wise. This might change now, but I know that the Arts Council in England have now committed this for 2021. This is the first time they've done it, and so not everyone will get funding. And give yourself time to not get funding. I think that's just general advice for everything, because people do not do that. Don't expect like, I think I had spoke to someone from the Arts Council once, and they said put in a funding application 3 times before you give up on it, because the first time it might just be an unlucky timing, and the second time it might be, oh, here's the thing that you need to improve on, and then the third time you get it. So I think like, be careful with that, but that is something that's going to be happening. The Arts Council in Wales and Scotland already had done that, or were already funding fringe projects. But I think other than that, it is looking at, there's a lot of websites and there's a lot of ways to find different grants and schemes, but don't get yourself in a situation where you have an investor. Make sure that they're giving you money and not going to ask for it back at the end, because you're not going to be able to give them their money back. It can be absolutely worth it, but you need to be really smart about it. It's all about preparation and going there knowing these are the press people you need. This is the marketing you need to do. Because flyering on the mile isn't going to get you the audience that you need. You need a really good strategy.
Amazing. That was so useful. People are really gonna find that so helpful. Thank you, Amina, and Will, and Krish. We've only got about 8 minutes left. We have quite a good question that I just want to address briefly. Krish, I'll come to you first. So the question is, I feel a lot of the time emerging artists do work for no pay and for the experience. They might not feel like they can ask for pay. Thus, when first entering the industry, how do you think you should start negotiating pay?
So I think that's something I still struggle with, because I'm still an emerging artist. So there's always that fear of, what if I say no, how easy it is for them to just find somebody else. But I will say then, if you're not getting paid a lot, then how much do you think you're going to be getting instead of money? Are you going to be making good connections? Are you going to be having a worthwhile experience? Is this a project that you personally feel you can grow from, or you feel personally excited about? So I think these are some things to consider when you're deciding if you should negotiate for pay or ask for higher pay, because I've done stuff where I haven't gotten paid at all. I've also done stuff where I've negotiated for pay. But I think pay should not be the most important thing you are looking at, especially when you're starting out, because you want to get your face out there. You want to make these connections and build a network. And network is more important than pay, especially when you're starting out. But that's just my 2 cents.
Yeah, fantastic. Will, anything from you?
I think it's a really sort of unfair thing in that it really does depend on what position you're in personally. In that, if you are someone who is fortunate enough to be able to afford to, take time off work and go and do a sort of unpaid opportunity, then there's nothing wrong with that, as long as you know that you're not being exploited, as long as the reason it's an unpaid opportunity is because it's with a really young company, or because it's with a friend or something who's looking to kind of start out, or stuff like that's fine. The difficulty is that not everybody has the means or the luxury to do stuff like that. Some people aren't in a position where they don't have a financial cushioning, where they can not quite make rent that month or whatever, because really it's all to do with time. And if someone's offering you an unpaid opportunity to perform in a space, and perhaps you're rehearsing on a weekend once a week, then I would imagine that most people would be able to commit to that and get quite a lot out of it. However, if someone is asking you, to fork out like a whole 2-3 weeks, 9 till 5, and you just can't afford to do that, then that isn't helpful for you, and it's going to cause you a lot of stress. So my it's kind of going off what Krish said, in that really you've just got to assess whether the work and the time that you're putting in is going to be worth whatever rewards you reap from that project, whether it be industry connections, people coming to see your show, being able to invite agents, making meaningful future working relationships, all of those things. If you feel like the time and the effort is worth it, do it. If you don't, there's no shame in not doing it, is what I would say.
Amazing. Anything from you, Amina, finally?
I'm going to say some really boring admin things, but if anyone's hiring you on profit share, as in hiring you, not a mate asking you to work with them, that is illegal. So there are you as an actor or as a stage manager or as an artist, you are protected by law. So if you can, and I'm not going to go through all of it now for the sake of time and because it's boring, read about your legal rights, find out about your legal rights, talk to equity and find out about that. Because if somebody says equity rates, that's not a thing. There's a million different ones. So really value your time. And take the time to look into what your legal rights are, because there are protections to stop you from being exploited. You just don't know about them yet. But I never work for free anymore. I have like free meetings, as it were, and coffees with people, but I don't work for free. Because as I say, we all need to eat. But also a big part of my why, which Chris was talking about, a big part of my why was as I say, increasing inclusivity. I think for working class, self-identifying working class people, a lot of the time that working for free isn't a possibility. And I think if we all start saying no to these jobs that are free, then more people can come into the industry without feeling the need to work for free, even though they can't, even though it's going to mean that they miss rent. Because it's really important that we make that change. I think there are times when it's fine, when you are working with friends, when you are just out of drama school and you're all going up to Edinburgh Fringe and you've got this show that you've come up with together and you're really excited about it. That's fine. But when it comes to being hired by people, ask for money, ask for your worth, because you're putting your talent into that, you're putting your creativity into that, and you're going to be like, it's so tiring. So make sure that you value yourself. Just because you're an emerging artist doesn't make you any less of an artist. So absolutely, like, ask for money, because it's not gross, it's not weird, it's not like, it doesn't make you less artsy and not bohemian. Like, we all need to eat. So absolutely ask for your worth. And if you don't know what that is, there are equity rates all over the place. There are like all these different kinds of rates that you can figure it out, or you can ask a producer, or you can ask a friend. Like, always ask to be paid, because you deserve to be.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, guys. That's flown by, and you've flown by so fast, and you've covered such a wide range of things, which I think people are just going to find so useful. And it's nice coming from you guys as well, because you're in the industry, you know what's going on firsthand, even better. Fantastic. Thank you so much for joining me at this second session. If you have missed anything, this for the viewers out there, we'll be typing up some bullet points on our social media, so you can refer back to them whenever you want to. And make sure you subscribe and just keep up to date with everything. Spill the tea, the little arty bits we're going to post. But yeah, thank you so much, guys. It's been an absolute,
Thank you.
incredible.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, guys.